So I'm going to talk to you a story of how we started out as just a small SaaS company and kind of exploded in all at once. We kind of did the thing that Mark just said you couldn't do, which was to do it all at once. By the way, great talk. There was tons of great data from what he and I, really in sync with the things that he was telling us. But what we've done as a business is we approached building an email marketing company, and we founded in 2001, and really got focused on the SMB market and just decided that was where we're going to be. But one of the big decisions we made early was that we couldn't possibly grow our business by buying our way to victory like Constant Contact did. Constant Contact had to go get cash so they could pour fuel on the flames and bought their way to customers. The customer acquisition cost was the killer. So we made the decision that we needed to go and build our tech but use somebody else's customers as our leverage to get to market. And so we went a channel strategy from the very get-go. And we went to Sage, who owned Act, and SalesLogix and Peachtree and a bunch of other products all over the world. They're a huge conglomerate of ERP for the SMB world. They're kind of the Intuit of the rest of the world. We went and said, well, if we could build into their environment, we could leverage their channels, we could leverage their customers, and it would give us that kickstart. So it is a really effective way of building your business. We went, and the strategy we started was that they had 600 resellers, kind of what we were talking about before, and we gave each one of the resellers our program and said, knock yourself out. So they used it and started emailing it and started building their businesses, and then they saw that email marketing worked and that our integration into Act was a perfectly smooth integration, and they turned around and started selling it to their customers. So it took us about a year of seeding the market to get that to happen. And then they went to the Act and said, this is the best add-on to Act there is. You need to put it in the product. And so I went through that path, and Act then took it and put it into Act and made an icon on the desktop. So you had this desktop product, Act, with this SaaS plugin inside of it. So we were kind of the SaaS component of the Act world. You know, an Act is just a CRM, for those who don't know it. It was kind of the original biggie. It started 28 years ago and really dominated the market. It's had about 6 million people buy it. Generally, the average age of the user is around 43. The biggest churn we have is people dying from old age. And so we really, but it's a huge market, and we thought that's the way. So we went and did that. And as any small business, when you become valuable to somebody like Sage, you know, and this happened in 2006 was when we actually started the full integration with Sage. And after a few years of them selling it, it became a really viable and important part of their offering. So as what happens with big companies when you're an important part of their offering, they came to us and said, we want to buy you. And we said, well, whatever. You know, you have to pretend like you don't care. And we got into a negotiation, and they offered us about 13 times revenue. I mean, it was an interesting opportunity. But at the same time, I had been doing this a while. You might notice my gray hair. And I've done through this cycle, and we had to run our business as if that was never going to happen, because it oftentimes doesn't. So we were having great success there. We were looking at bringing in and starting into new markets and working with the telcos and starting to expand out of that, because, you know, strategy one, make it work in Act. Then strategy two is take it to the next level, to other players and other distribution channels. So we hire, you know, one of the things I do when I build businesses is somewhere along the line as I'm building the business, I hire somebody to replace me. And I hired a CEO kind of to help take us into that next explosion, because I'm a product CEO. And I think most early developers, the CEOs, oftentimes are more product-oriented than really exploding a business or really operating a business. So I hired a CEO, and he came in, and he came from having done lots of deals. He was kind of a big co guy, but a good friend on my board. And so I brought him in. So 2 weeks after he came onto the business, I'm in England, where Sage's headquarters is, and I'm having lunch with the head of corporate development. And he says, well, Bob, I have some, not so good news. We've been talking about doing this deal, but we had a strategic decision, and KPMG came in and said, you guys need to focus only on ERP, and you need to sell anything that's not ERP. And so they needed to sell 7 businesses. And they tried to sell them all as a big group, which failed, and so then they split it into 2, 4 in Europe and 3 in the US. And they said, yep, we're going to sell all 3 of these together. And I called my CEO, of course it's only been with me 2 weeks, and said, 70% of our revenue just went out the window. There's someone else is going to buy it. What are we going to do? And he said, we're going to buy them. And I said, how are we going to do that? And he said, doesn't matter. Just go back and tell them we're going to buy them. And I said, you're right. We're going to buy them. So I called the guy up. He's still in his car from our lunch. And I said, that's kind of a shocker what you told me today. Why don't you guys back us and we'll buy this from you? And he goes, that's a great idea. I think that, you know us, our customers. There's a lot. They have other products from Sage. We want them to have a good experience. We don't want a bad buyer that would harm our business. So why don't you let me figure that out for you? And so that went away. Around Thanksgiving time, they came on and I got a phone call and said, you need to have an offer in by Monday. This was Thursday. So we're going to buy a company. We need an offer in 4 days. So we gave them a really, really crappy offer. And they said, this is stupid. You guys don't know what you're talking about, but hang on. So what happened was Excel KKR, who's a big private equity group, wanted the third company. So they wanted the nonprofit division, or nonprofit company in Austin. And then there was Sales Logics, which was a CRM, and there was ACT, which was the contact manager, as you guys know. So Sales Logics competed with Salesforce, and they were kind of built by the same guy, Pat Sullivan, and they had similar offices, they had similar people, but they're really 2 different divisions of Sage. And Sage came back to us and said, Excel KKR wants to buy this. We're going to introduce you, and you have to buy Sales Logics if you want to buy ACT. Okay. So bottom line is, they put us in a room with Excel KKR, and we worked as a team, and we made an offer that was accepted, and then we went through a nasty due diligence and all the nastiness of doing a deal of that nature. And we went from 40 people to 300 people on March 30 of 2013. And we went from $5 million of revenue to $60 million of revenue. So we kind of did the flip. And one of the reasons that we were so interested in it is because it was our philosophy from the beginning that the real winners in this market are people who combine the pieces of the puzzle. And we felt like email marketing was okay, it was a good market, but when you take email marketing and you put it together with CRM, and you take those signals that's in the CRM and you use it to help you with your email marketing, that synergy creates a better product for the customer, and that the end user is going to have a stronger result. So that's why we were so hot on it. And then philosophically, I'm going to talk a little bit more about like some of our future ideas about how that's going to be part of the winning formula, I think, in the SMB market. Things that are easy. When you can put things together and build them, they're a lot easier to deliver, and you're going to have more success. So that's kind of the history. We went through the cycle, and then we said, well, we really need to convert ACT, because it was all desktop. It really wasn't SaaS, but it was the right products. We want to convert them into a SaaS world. How do you do that? Well, I mean, I'm skipping a lot of the steps on what it was like having 300 employees when you're used to having 40, and there's a lot of people in England, and there's a lot of things we could spend an hour on. But the net of it was that we had to change the business dramatically. And the employees worked for $1 billion company, and they weren't agile and quick, and so we had a lot of things to solve. So what we did is said, well, let's sell sales logics, and that'll give us that pot of money that can convert the desktop perpetual license into subscription. So if you think about it, it's a $500 to buy ACT. You get it all the day you sell it. When you go to subscription and you get $25 a month, it takes you 2 years to get that same money back. So it's a big, huge impact from a cash standpoint. But then if you look at from a value standpoint, that dollar that you get of revenue from subscriptions worth at least 3 to 4 times, and sometimes 7 or 8 used to, but not anymore, times the value of that single one-time license. And in your customer relationship, everything has to change. So then we went from introducing in 2015 the concept of moving the whole ACT audience into the cloud. And that's really what we've been after. So what is it, why do we kind of see ourselves, and what do we see the focal point here? And the thing I want to talk about today is this concept of platform. And when everybody's been talking about platform all weekend or all this last couple of days, and the platform's always been the monster company who owns the world, like the Google. And in the financial world, when they talk platform, they're really talking about an anchor point from which you can start adding and buying other products and making the company bigger and bigger through acquisition. And so now that we've went through and we converted ACT over, and we went from, ACT has probably about 6 million people who bought it over the last years. In the last 10 years, it's about 4 million. There's about 400,000 that bought it in the last 3 years, and people come back about every 3 years to buy. And so we've now converted about 100,000 of those people into a subscription recurring revenue mode. So we have a huge business in recurring revenue already, and that was in our first year of changing everybody over. So it's the magic of acquisition is we went from 10,000 people, 5 million, to 100,000 people, and it took us about 3 years to get our act together, no pun intended, and to get that group to really think like that. Now we look at it and say, what are we? And we see ourselves as kind of the center of the universe as a CRM. CRM is where all the data goes, where the data gathers. Now you can start building tight relationships with these other players. So this is kind of like the first level of the ecosystem. We want, we have an email marketing solution, but we don't care. We want to take the MailChimp customer and plug them into ACT, and they use MailChimp instead of Swiftpage. That's fine. But we want to be that central point where all the data goes there. And once you have all the data, then you can start to really work and use the channels of your partners and use the relationships of your partners going forward. Then the next kind of level for us is to take a look and say, well, what can we, what's our next step? And I think our next step is to start to buy other businesses and become the platform. And we need to add SaaS companies onto our platform. And that's kind of what our strategy is going forward. So we look at, we're going to buy GoDaddy. It's not going to be a problem. They're bigger, but we know how to do that. I think the hosting guys, some of them are trying to do that. I mean, obviously Endurance did they made a big step with Constant. GoDaddy has bought Mad Mimi, and they're kind of putting the pieces together. So they're acting like these platforms. We want to act like a mini platform. We kind of look, one of my pet peeves right now is we're a huge believer in analytics, a believer that you have all these signals coming into the CRM, you know what they bought, what they've opened, what their, what their history is last time you called them. Those are fantastic signals to tell you what to do with that person next and tell you what a good customer looks like so that you can actually go out and bring more in the same. So I think we should be, I think we should buy Lead Genius. I made a pitch yesterday. I'm being facetious, but I think we should start putting the rest of these pieces together. And the marketplace, the financial players that are in this marketplace that we've just been learning about in the last couple of days, they're dying for leadership on how to get platforms together so that they can not just buy a small company and then grow it a little bit and sell it to somebody else. They want to build the pieces of success. And I think that we all have opportunities, not necessarily to do what we did. That was just very fortunate for us in our situation. But I think we have opportunities to bang together and put our companies together and either merge them together or get a capital source to come in and be the lead capital and you lead it. I've spent 2 years talking to Pam about some of your business. So some of the ones that I think are really important for us is the analytical part. We have a lot of services that are out there around purchasing, the purchasing process. Everybody wants to be able to just send an invoice and get click to cash. There's a lot of things you can do. So we have kind of two choices here, either acquire a piece or go deeply partner with some of you out there and really bring that whole solution. Because I believe the problem with the SMB is they're confused, they don't understand, they struggle with the simplest thing except for what they do well in their business. And so we can just bring them all out in a circle and put a bow on it, and it's all tightly integrated whether we own it or not. I think it's kind of the future that we should be at. I want to just talk about kind of the key things of what a platform is. To me, it's got to be about taking these total parts and making something more significant. So using the data from the analytics to tell the person who to call next is a perfect example. What the platform play for the financial market is all about adding plugins to it, getting you out there and you being an anchor point to have the other pieces of the puzzle added to it. So attractiveness to capital is much greater than if I'm just bringing my unit economics and that's the only part of my story. You can buy I was way not profitable until we bought these businesses, and then I was instantly profitable. So you can buy yourself to profitability if you buy profitable business. And obviously, in our world today, the time it takes to build tech and to get to market has never been faster, yet it takes forever to build a new product and to get acceptance and to build all the pieces. So combining things that already work and leveraging other people's is, I think, really what we're talking about with the roll-up. So let's talk about what doesn't work and what's challenging. If you're merging with the other company and you're the CEO, who's going to be the CEO of the next business? So it's a big deal. The leadership part is a pretty significant part of the equation. And if your vision is that it's your business and you want to grow it and you want to be that person, and it's a different vision than if you want to go and dominate in the market. And I think as a CEO, you really need to always be focusing on what's good for your customers and what's good for your shareholders, and you'll be taken care of. Getting the funding is also important. The control thing, if you get a really good financial partner, there's nothing better. If you get a not so good financial partner, there's nothing worse. So this is a really key part of it is really you picking the financial partner, not the financial partner picking you. We've had a real challenge in merging cultures. We have a third of our business is a bunch of people in England, and they're hard to fire, really hard to fire. This is a completely different culture, but they're really great workers. The people that were working in our business, a lot of them we're big company people, and we had to, evolve that and put in new leadership. So there's a lot of work in that, in the roll-up concept, really. Just the worldwide component is part of the issue. And then as you get bigger, you get a different group of people you're competing with. Just wrapping up my part here is, a little bit of what we referred to, which is really around controlling your growth by using acquisition as a method of that. Really helps you time your growth significantly. I do believe if you go down this path, you must find people that are going to not just add a component and add a customer, but actually add value. So the integration of the data is so critical part of this. And at the end of the day, your shareholder value is going to go way up if you can change your business, and if you're crazy enough to go do it. So with that said, I'll take a couple of questions. Yes?